If I die, you know I lose my diamonds, alright?
Hey kids, I've got bad news. Today, we're taking a field trip down to the good old Ram Ranch, which will end in as much sorrow and tragedy as black people having to kill Tony Hawk during the impending race war. Why? Well, it's very simple. You see, Ram Ranch is under siege.
Is this Come?
It was just a little edging session, just to stay Sigma.
Let us begin with a simple truth, an undeniable axiom that we must all agree on. No one is gayer than a young straight man. No one finds amusement from simply hearing the word penis as much as a straight 19-year-old. So you must imagine my joy, and maybe even go back to your memory banks to find your own joy when you first discovered the Ram Ranch. I'm sure you giggled about it at lunch tables, maybe even played it in a Taco Bell drive-thru.
Showers at Ram Ranch because dropping cocks.
You and your group of friends became a modern-day caroling troupe, giving joy and myrrh to the community. And, as I so frequently find myself saying, in a perfect world, this is where the story would have ended, but
this is not a perfect world.
You see, dear friends, I originally assumed that this was simply the work of an edgy, funny, silly, goofy young person like myself. And in fact, the only thing I was more sure of than Grant McDonald's youth was, of course, his straightness, because no actual homosexual person would be this vulgar, this grotesque, this over the top.
Just waiting on one of you to just bend over and fart. Just one huge fart, and then throw a little twerk in there.
I mean, it'd be like if Kanye West's new music was about how much he loves grape drink and chicken wangs from the stove. So naturally, you can imagine my shock when I found out that Grant McDonald was, in fact, a 50-something gay Canadian man who is completely serious. I would highly recommend checking out the Justin Wang video for a full deep dive on the history of the man. However, as you know, I like to prevent these videos from becoming 45-minute-long history lectures, as I'm told that leads to an addiction to chalk. Which means, I'm sorry to say, you're never getting my full Roman history lecture, as I cry every time.
Meta this, meta that. Have you ever met a fucking girl before?
The actual Ram Ranch meta-narrative, if you will, is kind of interesting. If you listen to Grant, he'll let you believe that this is some kind of avant-garde gay pride art project aimed at owning the right-wing chuds who wouldn't let him on the radio with his cowboy cock song.
It's a made-up tale. It's a total fabrication.
However, if you actually listen to the music, you'll find many key motifs such as Army boys, Navy boys, and of course, U.S. Marine. Find it interesting that there's such an emphasis on boys. Most notably, in fact, you will find references to a specific person who, if you're familiar with the Ram Ranch, you may just think is another made-up silly name, just Grant being a goofster. And of course, I am referring to the reoccurring character name of Sean. Of course, those of you familiar with the happenings at the ranch may be thinking I'm simply overreacting to his songs about Mr. Shawn Mendes. Of course not. I'm talking about the album and other songs called Fucking Sean Driscoll. Now, who is Sean Driscoll? This is the meat and potatoes. Now, before I blow your mind and ruin your day, I must inform you of something. I've buried the lead because the Ram Ranch writer himself, Grant McDonald, is currently arrested. Now, if you were to give him a chance and see his own ramblings about the situation, including this GoFundMe he set up, it would appear as though Grant is being persecuted by the Canadian government itself for supporting the COVID vaccine. This is a bit awkward and more importantly false because, Ram Ranch itself was actually used to break up a lot of the Telegram channels of the protesting truckers who were protesting against the vaccine and the government.
It actually worked. Didn't actually think it was going to work. It was kind of a little too easy, if I'm being quite honest.
No, my dear friends, you see, one last thing you need to know about Grant is that he is incredibly active on the internet, especially Discord, especially for a 50-something-year-old man. And this activity has gotten him into trouble Some would say yet again, however, I cannot verify the initial troubles. You see, friends, Sean Driscoll is many things. A bald Canadian, yes. A budding Canadian politician, yes. But most importantly, this is Grant McDonald's nephew, and he has been arrested for sharing his nudes. I repeat, sharing his nudes.
Brother, what's that?
Now, don't think that this is some crazy old guy
Throw a little twerk in there.
who's hacked into his younger family member's email account or something, because Sean is fully aware of Ram Ranch. The song is about himself. Here's him sitting in Grant's apartment wearing a Ram Ranch t-shirt. Since I don't want to get nuked off this website for hate speech, instead of the 10-minute spiel I had planned, I will just have to suffice with this Stone Toss comic. I no longer believe in satire. I barely believe in comedy at this point. It's too common. Far too frequently are people's haha funny jokes thinly veiled depictions of their soul. There is truly no line between the art and the artist, at least not these days. Case in point, the main reason I'm covering this story, and I couldn't even figure out an organic way to sneak it into the video, Grant's lawyer, his name is David Butt. This guy has no off. Okay, no off switch. This would be like if you sued Null from Kiwi Farms and he came to court with Dr. Jadavius Sneed as his lawyer.
You haven't been showing him looks-maxing edits
Look,
again.
I'm turning him into a Sigma. You act like that's a bad
Turning him
thing.
into a Sigma isn't bad, Bob, but risking his nuts exploding.
And to top it all off, the icing on the cake, Grant was acquitted. Grant will serve no prison time for this whatsoever. Grant fully got off. Both ways. Who knew that Mr. David Butt was actually a crack lawyer? This is insane. I'm assuming he used some version of the Brandon defense, i.e. my client is so old and retarded you cannot possibly put him in jail for this. And it worked! Twice! I don't want to tell you what kind of content to consume, especially when it comes to comedy. I mean, I personally miss the rage. Still, I'd rather you know than be left out in the dark.